So you want to open a barbershop. Few chairs, a couple of clippers, some guys coming in every 2 weeks for a fade, cash in the register by lunch. That's the picture in your head. Low overhead, simple service, loyal customers, easy money. Here's the problem. Almost none of that is how this business actually works. Let's start with the illusion, because the illusion is doing a lot of work here. Across the country, there are more than 130,000 barbershops and hair salons combined, generating a total industry revenue north of $50 billion a year. Men's grooming alone is one of the fastest growing corners of that industry, expected to keep climbing as more guys treat a haircut as a subscription instead of a once-a-month errand. Big numbers. The kind that make a normal person think, I want in. But here's the part nobody tells you. Most of that revenue never actually belongs to the shop. It belongs to the barber standing at the chair. The owner of the building might not see a cut of it at all. So how does an industry built on $30 haircuts produce owners who quietly do better than people running businesses 10 times the size? That's the entire question this video is going to answer. And the answer has almost nothing to do with haircuts themselves. Let's start with what you're actually buying into, because there isn't one barbershop business model. There are three, and each one changes who actually makes the money. The first is commission. The shop hires barbers as employees, pays them a percentage of whatever they bring in, usually somewhere between 40 and 60%, and keeps the rest. The owner controls scheduling, pricing, and quality, but also carries payroll tax, workers' comp, and the risk of a slow week landing entirely on the business. The second is booth rental, sometimes called chair rental. The barber isn't an employee at all. They're a tenant. They pay the shop owner a flat weekly or monthly fee, commonly somewhere between $150 and $400 a chair, and every dollar they earn cutting hair after that is theirs, not the shop's. The owner isn't running a barbershop anymore in the traditional sense. They're running a tiny, hyper-specific real estate business that happens to have mirrors on the wall. The third is a hybrid, commission to start, with an option to graduate into a rental agreement once a barber builds a big enough client base to make it worth going independent inside the same building. Here's what almost nobody walks in understanding. Booth rental is where the real, boring, dependable money is. Under commission, the owner's income rises and falls with every barber's bad month, every slow Tuesday, every client who cancels. Under booth rental, the rent is due whether that barber cut 10 heads or 0. The owner has quietly turned a service business with unpredictable daily swings into something that behaves a lot more like owning a small apartment building, just with clippers instead of tenants doing laundry. Now let's talk about what it actually costs to get through the front door. Opening a barbershop typically runs somewhere between $60,000 and $150,000, depending on the city, the build-out, and how many chairs you're trying to fill. That number is deceptively small compared to almost any other brick-and-mortar business, and that's exactly why so many people jump in without doing the math first. Lease and build-out eat the largest share. Commercial space suitable for a shop runs anywhere from $2,000 to $6,000 a month, depending on location. And landlords in most cities want first month, last month, and a security deposit before you even get the keys. Plumbing for extra sinks, electrical for extra outlets, and code-compliant ventilation can push renovation costs past $40,000 on their own before a single chair is bolted to the floor. Then there's the equipment. A single professional barber chair runs somewhere between $300 and $1,200, depending on quality. And a shop with 6 chairs is looking at $5,000 to $10,000 just in seating. Add sinks, mirrors, sterilization equipment required by state cosmetology boards, and point-of-sale systems, and equipment alone can cross $20,000 before you've hired a single barber. Licensing is where a lot of first-time owners get blindsided. Every state requires the shop itself to hold a barbershop or salon license separate from each barber's individual license. And boards conduct physical inspections before you're allowed to open. Miss a requirement on sink placement or sterilization protocol, and you don't open on schedule, no matter how much rent you're already paying on an empty space. Which brings us to the part where the real money actually starts moving: staffing. Here's the trap most first-time owners walk straight into. A chair sitting empty isn't neutral. It's a fixed cost, bleeding money every single day nobody's in it. If you're running commission and a barber quits, that chair produces 0 revenue until you replace them. But your rent, insurance, and utilities don't pause for you. If you're running booth rental and a renter leaves, you lose that flat fee entirely until you backfill the seat. Either way, an empty chair is the single biggest silent killer of a barbershop's margin. And it's rarely the thing new owners owners plan around. And barbers leaving isn't hypothetical. It's the norm. Because unlike almost every other service business, the barber, not the shop, usually owns the relationship with the customer. Clients follow their barber, not the address on the sign. A talented barber can build a book of 200 loyal clients over a couple years and walk 2 blocks down the street to a competitor, and a meaningful chunk of that shop's regular revenue walks out the door with them. Some owners try to lock this down with non-compete clauses, but those are notoriously hard to enforce in most states when it comes to personal service professionals, and courts have repeatedly sided with the barber's right to earn a living. This single fact reshapes the entire business. The owner isn't just running a shop, they're constantly managing retention of talent they don't fully control, competing with their own employees' ability to eventually leave and take the client list with them. Now let's talk about where the actual profit hides, because it's almost never the haircut itself. Product retail is one of the quietest profit centers in the business. Pomades, beard oils, and styling products typically carry a wholesale to retail markup of 100% or more, meaning a product that costs the shop $8 can retail for $18 to $20, all pure margin with zero labor cost attached. Shops that train barbers to actively recommend product at the chair can add thousands of dollars a month in revenue that never shows up as a haircut on the books. Membership and subscription models are the other quiet engine. Instead of charging per visit, a growing number of shops charge a flat monthly fee, commonly somewhere between $30 and $60 for unlimited or scheduled haircuts. This does two things at once. It locks in predictable recurring revenue the owner can actually forecast, and it shifts customer loyalty away from any single barber and toward the shop itself, which quietly solves some of that client walkout problem we just talked about. Then there's the retail of time itself through add-ons. Beard trims, hot towel shaves, and scalp treatments carry far higher margins than a basic haircut because they add minutes, not material cost. And most guys don't shop around on the price of an add-on the way they would on the base haircut. None of this changes one uncomfortable fact. Barbershops run overwhelmingly on thin, fast, high-volume transactions, and thin transactions are brutally sensitive to empty chairs, slow seasons, and no-shows. Industry estimates put no-show rates at some shops as high as 20% without a deposit or booking system in place, and every one of those empty slots is revenue that's gone forever the moment the clock passes it. That's part of why so many shops have shifted to requiring a card on file and charging a cancellation fee, a policy that would have seemed unthinkable in this industry a decade ago. There's also a cash dimension to this business that's impossible to ignore. Barbershops have historically run heavier on cash than almost any other retail service, partly because card processing fees eat directly into razor-thin per-service margins, and partly because a chunk of the industry still operates on informal, under-the-table arrangements between shop owners and renters that never show up cleanly on paper. This isn't universal, and it's shrinking as card and app-based payment become the norm, but it's part of why real profitability in this industry has always been harder to pin down from the outside than the simple math of haircuts times price would suggest. So how do experienced owners actually protect themselves and scale this into real money? They stop thinking one shop, one location. A multi-location owner can spread a single manager, a single supply order, and a single marketing budget across several shops, cutting the per-location overhead that a single owner has to absorb alone. It also diversifies the barber walkout risk. If one star barber leaves one location and takes 40 clients with them, it doesn't sink the business the way it would if that shop was the owner's only source of income. This is also exactly how the big national brands built themselves. Franchise chains built almost entirely on volume and consistency rather than star barbers, deliberately designed so that no single stylist ever becomes bigger than the brand itself. Customers walk in for the name and the price point, not for a specific person, which strips out the client walkout risk that haunts independent shops entirely. It's a completely different business built on the same clippers. So after all of that, what does a barbershop actually make? A single, well-run shop with 6 chairs running a mix of commission and booth rental can generate somewhere between $300,000 and $600,000 a year in total revenue, depending on city and chair count. But the owner's actual take-home, after rent, payroll, insurance, and supplies, typically lands somewhere between $40,000 and $90,000 a year for a single location. That number looks almost ordinary. It's the ceiling most single shop owners hit and never break through. The real money shows up once an owner shifts the model. Add booth rental income that arrives whether or not a chair is busy. Add retail margin, quietly compounding every month. Add a second and third location sharing the same overhead. Stack those three together, and owners running multiple locations routinely clear well into 6 figures, with the most successful multi-shop operators building something that behaves less like a barbershop and more like a small, distributed real estate portfolio that happens to also cut hair. So, is it worth it? This isn't a business where you cut a few heads and watch the money show up. It demands real capital before your first customer walks in, constant management of people whose loyalty from your customers can leave with them at any moment, brutal sensitivity to a single empty chair, and licensing risk that can freeze your opening date entirely. You're running payroll, negotiating a lease, training staff on upsells, and trying to build a brand strong enough that customers stay even when their favorite barber doesn't. But for the owners who get the model right, who understand that the haircut was never really the product, this becomes one of the most resilient small businesses in the country. Recessions barely touch it because people don't stop getting haircuts when the economy slows down. They just space them out by a week or two. The chair in the corner was never really selling haircuts. It was selling access to a piece of real estate with your name on the lease, long after the client walked out the door with a fresh fade.